Hey, it's Russ from the Infectious Groove Podcast and Vinyl Channel. Much to my pleasant surprise, Skid Row received the vinyl box set treatment, so I ran out and picked up a copy. I'm going to share a whole bunch of thoughts with you on it coming right up. So this box set was released December 3rd of 2021, Skid Row, The Atlantic Years, 1989 to 1996. I do own original pressings of a couple of different things that are in this box set, but for me there was the draw to it was the later stuff that I hadn't picked up yet. So throughout this video I'm going to share my overall thoughts on everything to do with this box set, but I'm also going to show you some differences between what's included in the set and the original pressings that I have from before, as well as what I consider to be some pros and cons. To be honest, the cons that I'm going to share on this set are very much, at least for me, minor personal preference issues. So starting right off with the pros, I think the packaging exceeded at least what I thought it was going to be. I really, to be honest, as much as I love Skid Row and that era of hard rock music, first of all, I was never expecting something like this to even come about. Second of all, I really didn't know what to expect quality-wise, from the packaging to the pressings to everything. So when I picked it up and like the band name Skid Row on the front is like a glossy, it's not really embossed, but it's raised a little bit. It's hard to describe. But also on the back, something that I noticed that was a huge difference from what I see in many other box sets nowadays. A lot of box sets that I pick up come up with a like a pre-printed paper sheet that's inside the shrink wrap, and then when you undo the shrink wrap, that paper comes off and you really don't have anywhere to put it. Whereas this here is actually printed on the box, which I thought was cool. Like that might be minor, but to me it was a big deal because I've had other box sets that cost more than this have that paper inner on the back, and then the back of the box ends up being blank and you don't really have anywhere to put all of this info. The pictures of the albums included are all glossy, which I think is a nice touch, and then like a matte finish on all the tracks that you're getting on the back. For me, the biggest draw to getting this box set, the biggest reason why I wanted to get it, was the last two things included, but I'll go through everything one by one, and then I'm going to show you some comparisons to the original pressings that I have as well. One thing I'll knock right out of the way, right off the bat, is sound quality. I did get a chance to listen to everything in this set. Previously, I had, of course, listened to my original pressings a bunch, and I also had a chance to compare the record store day version of Slave to the Grind from a couple years ago to the version that's in here. And I'll share all those thoughts as we go along. But inside the box set, you do get pretty much everything they did for Atlantic Records between 89 and 96. So you get a reprint of their first album, self-titled Effort Skid Row. After that, you get a 2 LP version of Slave to the Grind, which, and when I get into the original pressings that I have, or other pressings that I have of this, I'll show you some differences. But this one is probably the most unique one in the set because the original was on a single LP. The record store day version that came out a few years ago was on 2 LPs, and they put it in a gatefold for the first time. Then the record store day version actually had more tracks over the 2 LPs than this pressing does that's in the box set. So with this one here, it's interesting because I'm getting the same track listing that I have on my original pressing. The original pressing that I have comes with Get the F Out instead of the song Beggar's Day. And then the RSD version of it is over 2 LPs, so the record is spread out differently than it was on the original pressing, but because you have the extra songs on the 4th side. And then with this one, it's still over 2 LPs, but it's the same track listing that I have on my single LP version with no extra tracks, not even the Beggar's Day track. So this is probably the most unique one of everything in the set because now it's the 3rd unique pressing I have of Slave to the Grind. All 3 sound nearly identical to me. Now, I know there's a famous or infamous video of Sebastian Bach out there on YouTube where he really goes off about how poorly he says the RSD version of Slave to the Grind sounds. back when that came out, and I've actually done a comparison video of those two on this channel, so if you want to look for that, you can. I didn't hear much of a difference between my original pressing and the RSD version. And again, this here sounds nearly identical to me. I didn't notice any difference between this and the original or the 2LP pressing. So to me, it's just it's an oddball one that I have now, that it's such a different track list, and it's in a gatefold, and it's a really unique piece, that the most unique piece in the set, I guess, for me. After that, you get Beside Ourselves, which is a 5-track EP with at least one live track, and then everything else on it is all B-sides, and there's a great cover of Little Wing on here, so you get a copy of that as well. And then we get to the two things that, for me, this is the reason why I wanted the box set. Two reasons. Number one, I was finally able to get a copy of the last Skid Row album with Sebastian Bach on vocals, Subhuman Race, which I think is a really, really underrated album, and really hasn't had the chance or recognition that it deserves, in my opinion. And for years, I've looked around at original pressings of this, and they've just been outrageous. The cost of an original pressing of this, every time I've looked, has been as much or more than the cost that this box set was. So for me, it made a lot of sense to just pick up this box set. And then the other thing that you get, and most people would probably say this is the most unique piece that's in here, is you get this EP here, Subhuman Beings on Tour, which this was originally a Japanese-only CD release. So this has never seen a vinyl release, and it's never seen an official release of any kind outside of Japan. So now it's getting its worldwide treatment here in this box set. So for me, those two were the most unique pieces in the box, and really, to be honest, the biggest reason why I wanted to pick up the box. Now let's talk about sound quality. To me, everything in here sounds just as good as the originals. I did have a chance to do A/B comparisons. The only two pieces that I'd never heard before on vinyl was Subhuman Race and Subhuman Beings on Tour. And for me, the other ones, the self-titled album Slave to the Grind and Beside Ourselves, to me, they sound nearly identical to what I have on my original. So I don't know the lineage on this. I know with a lot of these box sets, it becomes very suspect as to whether they're digital remasters or what they were taken from. Even with Beside Ourselves, the version that I have on vinyl is from a Rocktober pressing 2 or 3 years ago. And so I don't know what the source is on that, but the one that's in this box set sounds similar to that. But to me, the more important thing is that Slave to the Grind and the self-titled first album sound, at least to my ears, identical to the original pressings that I have. The other thing that I want to cover, now this is where we're going to get into what I would consider con territory, and I guess like all cons, it's totally a matter of personal preference. But it is something that I want people to know if you're looking into getting this box set, or if you want originals. And if you have a preference like this, I would at least like you to know, what the difference is and what you're going to end up getting. So if you look at, and I will just use their self-titled as a example here. If you look at their first album, and this is the case with the first album, Slave to the Grind, both pressings that I have, other than the new one that came in the box set, and Beside Ourselves, even the Rocktober pressing of Beside Ourselves from a few years ago, all of them share one thing in common, and that is the original inners labels on all of the original pressings all have the Atlantic Records label, which I like a lot. Again, this is something that is just me personally. I really, really like classic record label inner labels. So for me, I like that the original pressings all have that. They all have the Atlantic Records original inner. But when you look at every pressing in the new box, they all have a printed inner, which is just a reprint of what was on the original sleeve, and then they gave the records in the plain white sleeves. But Then they gave each record its own new, I guess, updated inner label. So every one of these, from the self-titled all the way through the live EP that's included in the set, has this type of label instead. The like, I guess you could call it custom inner label instead of the original Atlantic Records label, which is kind of interesting to me, seeing as it's the box set. Part of the title of the box set is like the Atlantic years, the Atlantic record years. I don't know why that was done, why they would have changed out, unless it was an attempt to differentiate these from original pressings. I'm not really sure on that. And again, this might seem like a nitpick, and it's not something, don't get me wrong, I'm not upset that I purchased this set. I wouldn't discourage anybody else from picking up the set because of it. It's just a little preference issue that I have. I just like the original labels, and like I say, more than anything, I want to make sure everyone knows that that's what you're getting when you get this box set. The only other minor difference that I could point out is little things along the way, like the original of Slave to the Grind is on black vinyl. The Record Store Day version of Slave to the Grind was on 2 red records, and then the Beside Ourselves, because everything you're getting in this box set is all on black vinyl. The other issue is that the Rocktober version of Beside Ourselves is not only has the original Atlantic label on it, but in addition to that, it's on a silver gray vinyl. I don't know if they consider this silver or gray. It's kind of got a little shine to it, so to me it seems like it's more intended to be silver. So that's the only other one that's kind of odd, is the only pressing I personally have seen of Beside Ourselves was on a silver vinyl, and then it's on black inside the new box set. So that, for me, is really the only what I would consider con. And like I say, it's not even really a con, it's more of a personal preference. To me, with these box sets, what matters more than anything is faithful reproduction of the outer sleeve, and number one with a bullet is audio quality. And in the short time that I've got a chance, I've had 2 or 3 days now to really listen to these pressings, and then go not only on my memory of what the originals sounded like that I had, but also I did a couple of A/B comparisons between the 2 tracks. And for me, the audio quality is there. So if you don't own any Skid Row yet on vinyl, and you're looking to just knock out, the Sebastian Bach years all at once, I would recommend picking it up, with the only con being that you are going to get the custom inner labels instead of the originals. So for me, this here was a huge surprise. I had heard nothing about this coming. If you would have even asked me a week before this was announced, do you think they'll ever do a Skid Row vinyl box set? I would say, oh no, why would they do that? So I was pleasantly surprised by it. I like nearly everything about it. I'm ecstatic to finally have the Subhuman Race and Subhumans being on tour on vinyl, and most places that you're going to find this, it's running in the $200 price range, which I know the price of vinyl just keeps, we all talk about this in the vinyl community, that the price of vinyl just keeps going up and up and up. I think the price for $200 retail for 7 LPs, packaged as well as they are, and like I say, the little extra efforts that were done in the box set, to me, the value is there, especially if you're a Skid Row fan and if you don't have any originals, this seems like a very good way to go. One thing I do want to mention is that we have a vinyl Facebook group now, so if you want to discuss more vinyl with us, there's a link in the description below. As I always say, if you enjoy the content on the channel, or if this is your first time on the channel, please hit the subscribe button below and the notification bell so you know when we have new videos. We usually have 2 every week. And one thing I always say every one of these videos, thank you so much for watching.